Hi, this is Scott from ArborPro. Today we're going to take a look at preferences in ArborPro Enterprise 2.0. So on the toolbar on the left side here, there's a gear icon. That's preferences. So we'll go ahead and click that. And I'm just going to kind of zoom through these from the top down. So the very first section is map options. So there's quite a bit here. We'll start out with the highlight colors. So if we go in and select a group of trees by polygon, we'll go ahead and hit OK. So there they are. They're this light blue color. By default, they're red. I could make it any color I want. So that is the selection in the map. So that's now showing up in yellow. And then, of course, it shows up in map selection here. Now, another way to select trees is by going into the inventory view. And let's say we wanted to select everything that was, I don't know, parking lot. So we'll start searching by parking lot. And maybe we want to select a group of those. So now these are showing up, you see, in blue. So if we wanted to switch those, what we can do is go into preferences and say, okay, inventory highlight. So from the inventory, I'm highlighting as opposed to the map. So the inventory highlight color, we can go in, we see it's blue. Maybe we'll make it orange or something like that. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then they switch to orange. And none of this affects any of the data in the tree inventory. So this is really just color coding on the map. This is strictly just to kind of see and visualize what trees I have selected at a certain point in time. So that's all that really is. Now, if we go into map selection and we start selecting some of those, now we're selecting from within the map highlight, and that turns kind of a purple color. We sort of chose that. It's kind of hard coded in there, but it seems to be fairly visible. So we got 3 different colors going on there, 2 of which are customizable by the end user. So those are the highlight options. After clicking on a tree, we can either open the tree details pane or open the map info window. So what this is it's an option to either click on a tree and see the full tree details and go in and do some editing in there or add work history or whatever. This is really a full edit sort of experience. Now, if we go into the preferences and we say, really we only want the map info window, then what happens is this is a lot easier sort of if you're just kind of clicking around and looking at different trees and want to get a snapshot, sort of a little synopsis of what's, what is that tree. And of course, linked to that is the tree ID. And as you can probably imagine, when you click on that, you get to the full tree details. All these preferences are maintained when you log out and log back in. So if you ever are wondering, hey, why is this set a certain way, or why are these colors a certain color when I highlight them, that's all in the preferences here, and those are all saved. Okay, let's move on. So the next thing is detailed. So these are map layer options. So if we wanted to do the custom aerial, for this campus, this is SLO. So this is Cal State San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. They happen to have provided us with a custom aerial, and that's one of the advantages of ArborPro, is that we will take custom aerials that the client provides and provide those in the map. So that can be toggled on and off. Detailed layer is typically building numbers, building outlines, parcels, addresses, all that sort of thing. So that's another overlay that we can turn on and off. Sometimes that gets to be a lot of information for certain campuses, certain cities. So in the preferences, you can turn that on and off. And that way you just see aerial photography. It's a little easier to visualize the trees that way. All right. The other thing that we have is the tree protection zone. So tree protection zone, there it is. And if you just Google it, you can see there's some math involved in what the tree protection zone is. So this is typically areas where you don't want to do any sort of construction within that sort of radius. So we do the math for you, and you can visualize it here. So you see some of these with a pretty big DBH. You really want to stay out of that zone for this particular tree. So that can be toggled on and off, tree protection zone. Okay, we have a number of options for labeling. So we can show the tree IDs and the tree tags, and we'll just sort of add whatever information you want. So tree tag, DBH, species, common, and of course, the map gets pretty pretty full at that point. So, but it is an option to put all that on there. So we find that usually most clients like to label by the tree ID because they use that. That's just a numeric ID from 1 to, let's say, I don't know, 50,000 or something if you have 50,000 trees in the inventory. Obviously, the tree tag could be very helpful if you have those. But sometimes if you just want to do construction in an area and you kind of want to get an overview of what's there, um, DBH and common name are usually pretty typical. So I mentioned, some of this can get pretty crowded. So we can actually bump down the label size. So here it is at 14 pixel, 12 pixel, pretty small, but it's a lot more workable. We can start to see things a lot easier. So if we want to do tree IDs and go print a map, maybe we'd want those a little bit larger. It might be a little too large, but this would be good to kind of export into a report or something like that. You might be able to see things a little bit easier. So that is labeling and label font size. And we have a little sample font size here so we can kind of visualize that, what it's going to look like beforehand. So those are the map options. We're going to move on to the detail options. So details pane. Fast add. What is fast add? Well, let me go back in here and turn off the labels. So fast add under detail pane options. Saving a tree will close the tree pane, reopen it, and add the tree crosshair. So here's what happens. If we enable fast add, let's first disable it and see how kind of things default. So we're going to go in here and say add a new tree, and we'll position the map like we normally do when we add trees. We'll go ahead and move that over there. Click that, and then say, okay, this is just a coast live oak or something like that. Okay. Go ahead and save it. It saves it. And then with the fast add disabled, it keeps the tree details open for that tree. So then we can go back in and add more detail to it. So if we go back into the preferences and we say, okay, detail panes options, enable fast add. What this is typically used for is if we want to, if we're doing a lot of inventory at one time. So if we were doing this whole parking lot, for example, we can go ahead and position that. Maybe this one's a Melaleuca. There we go. Hit save. Okay, now notice that the tree detail pane disappeared and we're back into add mode again. So we're going to go ahead and click check. Maybe we'll paste recent tree. There it is. There's our Melaleuca again, and we'll hit save. So this is a way to really quickly get productive in an area by just doing this sort of fast add. Paste recent tree, maybe there's something different about it, DBH, condition, and then hit save. So this is a way to collect data in a very rapid way. So again, that's in preferences, details pane option, that's fast add new trees. Okay, clear and reset options. Notice there's a reset button in the lower left corner here. So this reset will reset highlights. So if we highlighted trees like we did earlier and they showed up in yellow or orange or blue or whatever, there's map highlight, inventory highlight. We might have a filter on, which we've discussed in other videos. We might have work history points that are showing up from a tree list, and we might have the reset view and zoom. So if I highlight all of those, or if I select all of those options, and let's say we go into inventory view and we have some things selected, and perhaps we'll go and select those new trees that we just added. We'll hit OK, so those show up in yellow. Now if I hit reset, that is going to clear out all the highlights. So we'll notice that we have map selection 0, tray selection 0, inventory is the entire inventory. We don't see any yellow points, orange points, and it reset me to the very beginning. So that really kind of did everything. That reset everything. That essentially went, okay, refresh the web page would be the equivalent to that. So what we can do, probably what I like to usually do is not reset the view and zoom, but I do want to clear out the highlights And so I usually click these first 4. And then you can, of course, reset to the original settings, which is none of this, nothing highlights or nothing clears out. So I'm going to do the first 4. And what's going to happen now is if I select a group of trees, so we'll go ahead and select some of these south end of campus or south of the campus. And notice my settings went back to red. So that reset kind of reset all the different settings. And then if I go in here and I say, okay, out of this map selection, I want to select 2 of them. And maybe I have, a tray selection here left over from before, and some of that stuff is all showing up. Now, if I want to zoom in and I want to just sort of stay in this area, but I want to reset my selection, I can go to reset, and it's going to reset. So there's nothing selected now, but it didn't take me out to the very start, the initial extent. And again, that's because I did not check reset view and zoom. So I just cleared out all the highlighting. So that's the clear and reset options. Zoom and highlight options, properties pane and work history pane. So if we go into the different properties, and let's say we wanted to go into, let's say, Arboretum. If we click that, it's going to try to zoom to that area. Now we have some trees here that are part of the Arboretum, so it zoomed out to a pretty, wide extent. So if we go to Morgan's trees, those are, that's another extent. So essentially what happened here is we zoomed to it, and the reason ArborPro zoomed to it is because we have this enabled. So click on a property, it'll zoom and highlight its trees. So that's kind of a, I usually like to keep those on by default. But if we, for example, went out here and we said, okay, Morgan's trees, and we click on it, it's not going to really do anything, but there are some options here to say, okay, zoom to, zoom and highlight. So effectively what it does is the same thing as zoom and highlight. It just does it in one click. So I typically like to leave that on. And then the same thing with the work history pane. So if we go into our lists, so we'll go into lists, work lists. We'll go to an open list, and we got 13 trees here. If we click on that, it's going to number them and highlight them in the map. Otherwise, you could just open list and inventory view, and that would essentially do the same thing. It would number them in the map. So typically that option to open it up and number them and highlight and zoom and all that, you'll want those both on. So the work history pane, this will zoom and number them in the map. And finally, we have some client options. Right now, there's just one to upload the logo. And where the logo appears is in the proposal. So if this is a brand new feature that we're going to highlight in another video. But essentially what it is it's kind of like a work list, but you're able to do proposals that are in a format that is kind of suitable for handing off to a client. And it aggregates things by DBH or species or some combination of that. So there's quite a bit of power in that. And so what we'll take a look at here is if we look at a proposal, let's look at edit. So we'll see that it has this ArborPro logo up in the upper left corner. So if we go into preferences and we say upload logo, I'm going to pretend for a moment that I'm Clemson University. So beautiful campus out there. Okay, we'll go ahead and upload it. It uploaded. So now we go back to proposals, and any of these proposals that we create or have created anytime in the past are now going to show my logo, so Clemson University. So this whole proposal capability we're going to get to in another video, but I just wanted to at least show that we can upload logos and display those, and the place to do that is in Preferences under Client Options. So that's about it for now for preferences, and we'll see you again on the next video.